Hey, good morning, everybody. Extraordinary experiences.
Yeah, we are so happy to be here with you this morning and every week, of course, as we continue to bring you extraordinary people and get your inspiration from their stories and their vantage point and viewpoints to help everybody unleash their superpowers, become all that they can be in their life, and of course, find joy in their life.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. We have a fabulous guest today, Reverend Candace Breen.
Yes, yes. And we had the pleasure of meeting Candace a little while ago. We were honored to be invited to be on her show, and we had to outreach and invite her on to our show and our network as well. Candace, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it is such a pleasure to see you again. Please tell everybody, Candace, who you are and what you do.
Oh, wow. In a nutshell, I'm a spiritualist minister, and I'm an author and an artist. I also host a radio show that you were on, Awakened Path Radio. Mm-hmm. And I really like to be to give out love and light. So I promote love and light and all of that through my work, my art, and through my writings as well.
Yeah. And we love that because we do know that our messaging comes through every vehicle that we can steer ourselves in and provide inspiration to everybody in all platforms of our life, right?
Yeah.
Right. Candace, how long have you been doing what you do?
Well, unofficially for many, many years. I was born with certain gifts, psychic gifts, spiritual gifts, and I've always been sort of a healer of many sorts. Even as a child, I was doing shamanic psychopomp and doing connecting with spirits and all of that. I didn't know that there were names for these until I became an adult. And then I went and decided to, everyone has to get a label. So I went and got ordained, got a label and things like that. But so it's been it's my life. Mm-hmm. It's my life from childhood to now. It's all I've ever known.
Right.
I find in your we didn't read your bio, so let's talk a little bit about, you come from South Africa. Is that correct?
West Africa. West
Africa.
Yeah.
And that's even better.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's even better. West Africa. A melting pot of people, tribes of all sorts. And you've known since you were very young that you've had these gifts.
Yeah.
And yet you've embraced them and have decided to use them. And for some reason you've known inside, ever since you were a little child, that you would be doing this. Would I be correct when I say that?
Yes. In my family, when we were, my relatives, the people, my ancestors were the last people who were brought here from West Africa illegally.
Wow.
And to Mobile Bay. They were aboard the Clotilda that's been in the news lately because they claim to have found the ship, but it was always there. Just at low tide, you could see it.
Wow.
Because they burned it, so no one would know. But here, these West Africans were left because the authorities got word of this illegal activity that was going on, and they were chasing down the captain, and he suddenly disappeared. So there were these West Africans, some from all different tribes, and they decided, we're going to have to make a home. So they made their home there. They founded Africa Town, where my grandfather lived, my cousins, all of that. And it's still active today, not as active as before, but it still is today. And they brought their traditions with them as well, which includes Buddha and a lot of Santeria, things as like that. But the thing what happened in my family, both my parents were heavy into voodoo, but they used it. They had spiritual gifts. A lot of people in my family line had spiritual gifts. And I knew about all this on both sides of my family. My parents used voodoo for personal gain, not to help people. So they were into dark magic, and I knew this growing up. But somehow I was prevented from going down that route. I mean, I saw things and experienced things as a child that normally would scare someone, but for some reason I wasn't afraid. And I had talked about some of these very scary experiences in my book, Born Different. And some of them were very, very, but I wasn't afraid. And it wasn't until, and I thought I was normal. I thought was what every family went through. Kids at school, all of that. And when I opened up my mouth at school, elementary school, I found out that not everyone has those experiences. So I was called witch, and I was ostracized and things like that. And it took a while for me to actually embrace that I was different. Yeah. I knew I had these abilities. I could see and speak and communicate with entities that other people could not see.
Wow. Wow. I love this. I love this, okay, because anyway, we don't need to get into why I love this. Love this, okay. But what I think one of the things that I love is the absolute embracing of your authenticity, and to love and honor your parents on their journey into extraordinary experiences in their life that help create their reality for them. So we certainly love and honor them. When in being a child, all of us who have all kinds of intuitive gifts, and of course we believe everybody has intuitive gifts, you either kind of turn them on or you kind of keep them shut down. And we love it when we have a tendency as human beings to kind of pack them away. We kind of pack them away in storage because we're being ostracized, because we're being judged. We try to fit in, and then something a lot of times happens in our lives and we start to unpack, the gifts. And what I find, or what we commonly find, is, I swear it's just like Christmas lights. What I mean by that is this. Your Christmas lights are always working when you pack them away. And then somehow the next year you unpack them, and some of them are working, some you're like, what happened to them? What happened to them while they were in storage? Was something in there doing something? So your gifts can change once they've been packed away. They kind of grow a little bit in storage. They kind of feather out. Did you find that to be kind of true in your life? Did you pack yourself away when you started being judged and then unpack yourself later?
Oh yeah. I packed them away, and I packed them away hard. When I became a young adult and I was a public school teacher, I wouldn't dare open my mouth. Right. So I tried to fit in different religions. I was a Baptist, I was a Catholic, I did all of these things, and each one I had to leave because I was found out. And I remember at a Baptist church, I became a Baptist once because I loved singing, and I was a lead alto, and I really excelled in the choirs. I was in 3 of them. And when I had mentioned to the pastor one day that I was meditating, he said, "You better not be meditating if it's not on the Bible. If it's not on the Bible, you are sinning." Wow. And I said, oh gosh, I got to get out of here. Right. Right. And the same thing with the Catholicism and all of this. And finally, I made this big circle, and finally I ended up right back where I always was. I used the quote, nature is my church, love is my religion. I forgot who said that, but that's what I used. And when I made that full circle and came right back to home, to my heart, where I was in the beginning anyway, I cut off all religions and said, I'm just going to be. Yeah. And once I did that, my gifts were even more strong, were even stronger than they were when I was a child. Right. I actually saw a woman who I used to call my adopted mother. She came back in the flesh to visit me. Wow. And I should have dropped dead or fainted, but I didn't. And I also explain that story in detail in my book. I should have, but there she was, exactly the way I remembered her, granting the wish that I always wanted was just to have one more day with her.
Yeah.
And it happened.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. Then, I would have explosions of people I didn't know in spirit coming to me and asking me to go deliver a message to someone, to do this. And it was gratifying because here I was being a healer, helping people with my gifts. And there's no turning back now. There's no way I'd ever shut myself up again. No.
Right.
I feel good about what I'm doing. I speak to ascended masters, everything. And it's just, and I have this great spiritual relationship. Even, I've always been told when I was a kid that I was weird anyway, because I used to talk to animals and I felt that they were talking to me too.
Right.
And the trees and all of that. And now I see more and more people like me.
Yeah.
And that feels good.
Yeah. Yeah. It does feel good. It's our blessing, of course, to be in your company, but also now the company of other all great practitioners and authentic energy people, right? You were very ostracized because, like you, Candace, for a little while, Brad was actually raised in a very strict religion. And so when he was a little boy, like you said, this was just devil work, okay? But that inner conflict, right? So am I bad? Am I good?
That's all it is it's just inner conflict. And you know that there's something else. You just can't put your thumb on it. But every night you dream about things and then you're told that that's not the way it's supposed to be. And you ask questions to people who are in charge and they can't answer the questions that you're saying. And so their response is, well, we're just not supposed to talk about that. We're not supposed to know about that. And then when you mention, but what about the people that are standing in my room that are giving me information and talking to me? Oh my goodness, you certainly can't talk to them.
Yeah.
That's of the devil.
Yeah.
Okay. So I understand completely what you're talking about when you had a visitation and how other beings have come to you. I was getting the picture in my mind when you were talking about that of how the door had been cracked and all of these people were allowed to come see you and visit you because that door had finally become cracked, and how you have embraced that and just continued to flourish with that cracking of the door.
Well, for myself also, Candace, when I was a child, now I was lucky to not be brought up with any real religion in my life. So I already had an energy of permission kind of from my parents. Although when I was a child and would come out and say, hey, there was a man in my room last night and he told me I was going to win the soccer game and I was going to score 3 goals and Mary was going to, and then the game would play itself out and I would say to my parents, see, that's what the man told us. Yeah. And my parents would be like, yeah, that's nice, honey. And so I had an aspect of permission. But when people listen to these types of stories, I know a lot of times people will say, oh my God, that would just terrify me. And I always think, really? I didn't find it scary at all. I think I was blessed, and I know that you were blessed, and Brad was blessed with entities and beings and souls of high frequency and love, and that nothing's scary about that energy. Do you find that to be true?
Oh, so true. I mean, I felt that even as a child. I knew that there was someone protecting me from all the darkness that was around me.
Right.
And I didn't get enveloped by it.
Yeah.
And I know you mentioned the story about, seeing and speaking and all that, and people not believing you. So my husband's family had to come to terms with what my gift, and it shocked the heck out of them. Yeah. Actually.
I think you're putting that very lightly.
What the hell?
Because my late father-in-law, he and I had some connection that was unlike any connection that he had with his own children. And when he passed, he came to me. And I said, oh, no, come on, they're not going to believe me, blah, blah, blah. And I said, why do you come to me? And he said, because you're the only one receptive to this.
Right.
And I mean, he guided me through the whole morning with the morning period with his family. He told me things that they were like, oh my gosh, how did you know that? I said, yeah, he told me.
Right.
He told me.
Right.
And then when it was time, when he had done what he needed to do and made sure that the family, his wife, everyone was all right, he asked me to help him cross over.
Wow.
I had never done that before. Somehow I knew exactly what to do, and I did it. And when he crossed, I had to actually go into his house. So it was like I was breaking into my mother-in-law's house, but I wasn't. My husband opened the door because my mother-in-law was at home. I said, go with the key, I got to go inside. Yeah. And, and when I did it, I didn't know what to do, but I don't even remember what I did. I just remember that there was this breeze there was no breeze outside at all. It was hot outside. It was June or July day. It was hot. And there was this breeze and the curtains ruffled and, on the other side of the kitchen, and he left.
Yeah.
And I knew he had gone.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because a lot of when entities come to me and they ask, sometimes I don't know how to do it, but then I know how to do it. I had my half-sister's ex-fiance come to me and wanted to do telepathy. And I said, I've never done telepathy before. He said, I'll show you. And he showed me. I had to deliver a message to her.
Wow.
And from him, because it was just amazing. And I value these relationships.
Right.
And like you said about there was a crack in the door. I mean, once you're receptive, here they come. They're all coming. Right. And I'm a wide open door.
Yeah.
And I love doing that work.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's such a gift. And again, to support anybody who's out there viewing this that may be thinking, oh my God, that would scare the hell out of me. And we're like, well, that's exactly why you're not doing it. That's why you're not doing it.
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Your door's not cracked, folks. If you're not accepting the fact
They've got the 7 bolts on there.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's very true.
Yeah.
So Candace, tell us, what is it now that even though you've had all of these things happen in your life and all of these experiences come into your life, what is it now that you do that just inspires you and gives you your drive every day to be who you are and do what you do?
I have my nightly meditations where I talk to my guides every single night, and I ask them for advice and encouragement. And, they always come through. They always show me. We always need a pat on the back. And when they tell me something, I tell them to give me a message for the next day or whatever. I mean, it just keeps me going. I said, see, they were right. They said that, and this is what happened. They always come through, and that keeps me believing.
Yeah.
And keeps me going. And also watching my own children with their intuitive abilities developing and them asking me questions and me telling them, look, I've been there. I know.
Yeah.
It's the most wonderful feeling ever, is to get that reassurance. And I feel like I always have an army of spirits around me because they're always talking to me.
Right.
And showing me. And that to me, that keeps me going. Is that reassurance that, when they direct me to help someone or someone has a question, it just keeps me going.
Yeah.
And they help me in my art when I'm stuck and I said, I really don't know what to do. They'll give me some guidance. I mean, every day I see it as a blank canvas filled with possibilities.
Yeah.
And filling that canvas is what makes me feel that I can do this day. Yeah.
We also tell people, some people get a real strong vision in their minds. It's our typical human components of ourself, our altered ego. we see things on movies that, look like these, massive phenomenons that take place when you have connections. And I know that in myself channeling Julius, people will always say, well, what are they saying? What are they saying? And I say, well, they show me things, and then I do my best to convey the interpretation through our limited language here on the earth, what it is that they're showing me. But I think it's important, too, to support to people that although phenomenons can be very massive, it's the subtleties that are the most powerful. And because we're human and because we have this altered ego, we tend to excuse them away. We insult the experience by calling it coincidence. It's probably the most insulting things that we can do for our own selves. Yeah. Do you find, now of course I know that you have refined this process and you continue to refine this process, but you look for the subtleties as well as the massive hit you over the head phenomenons?
Yes, it is our human tendency to doubt what we see and to ignore it. And when they knock us over the head, that's because we weren't listening to the subtleties.
Right. And so we always tell everybody too, whatever you imagine is going on, honor it and investigate it, because I think that everything is real. Everything has a possibility to it, and everything is real, whether you embrace and invite it in or whether you turn it away. I'm sure that you probably got a lot of obviously you have threading components to your parents for these gifts, and your children have this, now with you. Do you teach your children to listen to the quiet whispers?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to know. What's your connection now with your children? And because you mentioned that your children are starting to come to you and talk a little bit about, quote, the gifts that they have. And I think this is going to be absolutely fascinating. Part of this discussion is, what are you doing with your children to help enhance these gifts?
Well, my children are 11 and 8 years old, and they've known about this for probably 5 years, I want to say. We do a nighttime meditation together as a family, and we do a share out where we can talk about anything in our day. And our job is to listen to the other person, and then we talk about it. And I like to take them to places that will inspire their gifts. Like, we do a lot of outdoorsy things, and we live in the woods here, so it's very nice and peaceful, and I just take them out there, and my daughter just naturally just does it. And she's 11, and she tells me about her friends, she calls them. And it's just, and I listen. The thing that I find is when we tell them, oh, that's not real, or when we don't encourage, that's when they shut down and they become boring adults.
Right. Practical. They become practical.
Exactly. If fitting in that 9-to-5 routine and not having any kind of creativity or imagination or any type of feeling whatsoever. Yeah. So I listen. Listening is the best thing I can do, because that validates them. Yeah. That validates them. That's the best thing anyone could do. Don't tell them they're wrong. Right. Or they're imagining things, or be quiet. When kids say they have imaginary friends, believe them. Yeah. They have someone there. Absolutely. There is someone. The kids are, when they're children, they are far more receptive than we are as adults. Yeah. Far more. And it's time that some of us just welcome that.
What about your husband, Candace? Has he always kind of been into this energy, or were you the one that kind of introduced him into this and had to get him warmed, turned on, warmed up,
revved up? He ran and hid in the closet. She's doing that thing. She's doing that thing.
Well, he and I, we communicate a lot. I mean, he was a little on the fence about it. We've been married 12 years. So he was on the fence about it at first. And then, I just couldn't help what I do and my meditation and stuff. And he's the person who always research. Before he asks a question, he goes and finds a book about it and tries to read. So he learned a lot on his own about this world, about my gifts. And he's never told me that I was crazy
Nice.
or any of things. He just accepts it. His father told him a wise thing. If someone tells you something, believe it.
Nice. That's
And
nice.
that's what he does.
Yeah.
There he does.
Yeah.
I'm not going anywhere, and I'm not changing the way I am. So he's stuck with it.
Well, actually, you do. You're just going to continue to expand, right? We're all in the expansive and extraordinary process of all that. So it's fantastic that you've been able in your life to surround yourself with a support system, with their honoring their variable energies, but that everybody works in a support system. We find it's common for the people that you consult with, and the people that you teach, and the people that you heal. I know that you encounter a good portion of people who don't have a support system around them, that they kind of, they're discovering they don't know what to do with their gifts, so they don't know if they should bring them out of the closet or pack them away. What do you tell people, Candace, when it comes to that, when they're coming to you and saying, my life is disruptive because of my gifts, because I'm kind of isolated in this journey? What is it that you talk to them about?
Well, actually, I have met so many like that. I have a woman who had come to me and told me she couldn't be herself because all the people around her will call her crazy.
Yeah.
And I embraced her with love. And I told her, if you don't embrace your gifts, you're doing a disservice to all of us. To all of us. Don't you want to help everyone?
Right.
And the people who are not there yet, if they will be there,
right,
if they're going to be, and if they're not, they weren't meant to be there anyway.
Yeah,
it's a hard cookie to swallow.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know anyone swallows a cookie, but a pill or whatever. But I tell them to honor your ancestors, honor the planet, honor all of us by embracing and by being who you truly are.
Yeah, yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
That's our job. That's our role. If you're giving these gifts, you have to use them. They're giving to you for a reason. Because if you don't, and this is true, if you don't use them, you're going to get sick. You're going to have health issues.
Right.
And your whole life is going to crumble apart.
Right.
So don't resist. When you don't resist, you'll see things get better, and unnecessary people automatically are removed from your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
That person may be having chaos because they're resisting.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't resist.
It's true. It's true. And it also, everybody out there, or a good portion of people out there, on their conscious journey, on their spiritual path, talk about wanting to know their purpose, wanting to know why they're here, or other terminology for that is, I can't find fulfillment in my life. I can't find joy in my life. And of course, we always say, well, expressing, embracing, and demonstrating your authenticity and your authentic self will create all of that fulfillment and that joy, in your life. And the non-judgment component of who you are and who anybody else is. So what we find, one of the byproducts of intuitive gifts for a lot of people, we think, is it also helps to create an open-minded state for everybody else. Nobody's weirder than I am, that being a trans channel and watching me trans channel, nobody's weirder, than that. And so I love all of the authenticity in everybody else.
Well, it also opens the door. What I've begun to recognize is, as more and more practitioners come out and talk about their gifts, and of course that's kind of what we're trying to do here with this programming, is to get people out there that are available to people that they just don't know about. Because there are practitioners all over the world, not just in the United States, but all over the world, that come from different heritages, come from different family makeups, come from different tribes, so to speak. And there is so much that is available that everyone should be accessible to everybody else if they're looking for it or not. And so hopefully by having you on our program, this is going to open the door to more people who are looking for what you have to offer them.
Yeah.
That they'll come to you and see you, or at least visit with you.
Candace, how did you find your bravery? You know, it takes a lot of
It does.
balls, tenacity, bravery to love yourself and to show yourself. How did you find that? Did you always have that? Or did you have to get inside of yourself and unleash that superpower and pull up your big girl panties and say, I'm a warrior in this and I'm doing this thing? How did you do that?
Oh, wow. Well, let me tell you, it was a long road. And I had been broken many times, downright in the dirt broken. And I think those experiences were very, were important for me to have. I mean, I had been killed, almost killed a few times. And I mean, I endured many hurts, a lot of them. I mean, my book After the Darkness talks about all of my journey here. And I think that being broken and fallen those many times, and then having to just, I got to get back up. You know, something kept telling me, girl, get up.
Nice.
Every single time, get up, keep walking. And it was hard.
Mm-hmm.
And it was hard. And I mean, I would have nightmares and things like that. And it was just, it was a very trying, long road. But let me tell you, it was messages from Spirit through other people that gave me strength to become who I am today, being all out there and strong. I mean, there were plenty of naysayers, people who said, be quiet, don't share your stories, you're offending me.
Yeah.
And then there were those people who would say to me, you're doing this for a reason. There's a reason for this. You're strong. And one time, okay, my daughter, the birth of my daughter really changed things for me. It's our oldest child. She was in a little carrier and I was going into the post office one day. And there was a time when I was in People Magazine. They interviewed me in People Magazine. In connection with the Mackenzie Phillips story. And a woman, I've never seen her in my life. She was at the counter. She was this old lady with white hair. And she turned around and said, in terms that I understood at the time, she said, God's going to use you for something. I see a light about your head. And then she left. And when I picked up my carrier to walk to the front of the front of the line, I turned around. I mean, the parking lot was like a postage stamp. It was very small. And she wasn't there.
Yeah.
She wasn't there. And that was not the first time that happened. There were manifestations of Spirit that would come to me throughout different stages. And they would stick with me. And I know that was Spirit communicating with me and telling me to move on, to do it. You can do it. And when I held my baby, I remember when I held my daughter when she was born, I looked at this little girl in my arms and I just felt like my heart explode. I had to do this for my child. I couldn't hold myself in a shell. What kind of person would I be if my child comes with intuitive gifts? I can't let her not have them.
Right, right.
And then I started to meet people. People were put in my path who were just like me. And that bonding, that unity is what created strength.
Yeah, yeah. We call them runners. We call the runners, you know, Joyce talks about the runners in our lives, the people, places, things, circumstances, even songs can be those inspiration, pinging us, anything that draws our attention, you know, to our own powerful selves and reminders, you know, to pick up and keep going. Because, and the reason we ask you that question, of course, again, is making all of this very relatable. The other thing that we love to talk about is a lot of people, Candace, don't think they're worthy of gifts, that only certain people are chosen, that I couldn't possibly have this. I'm not like you. I'm not this big, powerful energy force. I'm just meek. I don't matter. I don't have a big life. What do you tell those people?
Well, see, every little piece creates the whole, no matter how big or small. I mean, we see celebrities on TV all the time, but you take away their money, you take away their stardom, they're just like us.
Yeah.
Just like us. I mean, it goes for any aspect of life. I mean, we know musicians. So my husband's a musician. So he may not be, a member of the Rolling Stones, but he's just as good.
Yeah.
He's just as good, probably even better than some of them.
Yeah.
Every little piece creates the whole. Is that unfortunately in this world, money is what makes people powerful. Those people who have money are the people who overshadow everyone else, and that's what we see. Right. And that's what discourages a lot of people.
Right.
Is all the big money makers, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, we always tell everybody the only thing keeping you from being worthy is your own mind and your own thought process. That's not authentically coming from anywhere except what your altered ego
you're holding
is
your own
creating
self.
for
You hold your own self back.
Yeah, and like you said, we see so many people who do stifle this and hold this, and of course your body is all of your thoughts and emotions actualized. That transcends itself into all kinds of physical limitations, chronic conditions, diseases, and limitations, in your life. Unleashing all of this opens up the field, right, for you, for everything in your life and all of your possibilities, right?
Right.
Yeah. When you have the opportunity to interact with people, which we know is all the time, do you do anything, Candace, to particularly prep you for any of this interaction, or do you find that's absolutely not necessary, that this field of energy is just a continuum of an open access platform for you?
Well, that's a good question. I find that when I'm given messages or something, I'm never prepared. I'm never prepared for it. It just happens. But then when, I find also that I have to set boundaries, spiritual boundaries. For instance, there have been times when my guides and spirits were talking up a storm, and it was late at night, and I said, look, I have to go to bed.
Right.
Well, you're going to I set my boundaries and say, thank you for your messages, but I need to rest. You can talk to me later, tomorrow, another time.
Yeah.
So I have to set boundaries, or I'll be a lunatic all day. I'll be wired.
We hear you on that. We hear you on that. Especially if we have a course or a class going on, it goes in late in the night, and we try to shut things down, and then
it ends up being all night long, and then you can't get up in the morning and don't feel like doing anything the next day.
One of my favorite movies, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but I don't know if you remember the old Peter Sellers Pink Panther movies.
Oh.
And Peter Sellers had this sidekick named Kato. And his job was to surprise Peter Sellers all the time, to keep Peter Sellers' skills honed, okay? And it was, he'd walk into his house, every day, and you never knew when Kato was going to jump out, and really test him. He felt like that kept him on the edge, kept his skills refined. And I always sometimes get an envision of that. These spirits are like, they're ready to just jump in, and keep our skills refined for us, right? And Peter Sellers was always coming in going, no, Kato, not now, and boom, They would jump in. We find that's kind of the truth. We'll just be having a conversation with someone, and all of a sudden I'm channeling to this person, and Brad's kind of standing there going, well,
what in the world triggered that conversation?
Right. And he's over there holding the space going, God, I hope this person can handle this conversation. Yeah. And of course we generally trust that they can. Otherwise it wouldn't be coming through. Right. That's the other thing that I wanted to touch on, if we can, for our viewers, is when somebody is first starting to notice that they're getting intuitive gifts and they're not quite sure if they should say something. You know, what if I'm wrong? I don't want to offend somebody. And we always tell everybody, if you're getting messages, that's probably about 90% that you're right on something, because somebody is talking to you, either somebody from that person's team or somebody from your person's team. And, you know, with a little bit of eloquence and love to be delivering that message to that person, number one, is a gift, and you're a runner. But it also helps you accept that those are your gifts. Do you encourage that practice?
Oh, I definitely encourage people to once you know that, once you have a little piece, go with it. Go with it, because again, if you don't, you're going to get sick.
Right.
And it's your time to awaken. Everyone's awake. There's so many people awakening, and we awaken at different times. But if it's your time to awaken, it's your time to awaken.
Yeah, yeah. And we love that. And plus, we always tell everybody, you're always right. Even if we believe, of course, everybody.
Just because someone else doesn't agree with you doesn't mean it's not your truth.
Right, right. Especially if you deliver the messages with love. I think you're in a really, really, safe place. I tell everybody the story in channeling Julius. I never really had considered the fact that I could give readings to people. I mean, Julius gave fabulous subject matter, courses and classes. We were put, of course, thankfully, in a compromising position financially where we were someplace. And the car had been broken into, it'd been towed away, had limited funds, and we were at an event. And normally at the events, we weren't really doing anything to actually earn money from. We were really there just to promote Julius. Brad looked at me and said, "You're doing readings while we're at this event." And I'm like, what? I'm like, I don't do readings. I don't do readings. He's like, the hell you don't. Every time you talk to somebody, just sit down here. He went and grabbed a table and a little bit of chairs, and I'm like, and boom, I was off and running, okay? I'm standing up, channeling Joyce. These people are sitting back in their chair like, oh my God, and their line is lining up. And what was, of course, it was an extraordinary experience, but it was me letting go of that doubt. Him sitting there going, we got to get home. We need gas money and we need to eat tonight. You sit down and you give somebody a damn reading. I'm like, no. And there it was, and there it was. And
it's great when you let go of resistance.
Yeah. And all of those great experiences for everybody, right?
Yeah. So Candace, you've got a book.
Yes.
You've written a book.
Written
3 books. Tell us about them, please.
All right. Well, I actually have them here with me. My
Perfect.
3 book that I'm going to show you. My first book, After the Darkness. That one I wrote. That one was out last year. Last June, I think. And that book talks about my long and difficult road, all of the challenges of getting knocked down. And notice that the title says After the Darkness. So there was more than just the darkness. Once I opened up and came out of all that, life was beautiful. And this one, Born Different, was the second book. It says A Woman's Spiritual Journey of Self-Acceptance.
Wow.
Now that talks about me and my growing up with my intuitive gifts and being surrounded by the darkness of the black magic that my parents were doing, seeing things that other people didn't, being misunderstood, all those things like that. And then the love that I had for myself once I embraced who I was. And then there's the last book I wrote, which came out this year, actually February, is Today I Feel Ugly. And it's about overcoming negative self-image, which I dealt with. And I give examples of what I dealt with being different from everyone else and how I felt, because that can do a number on your self-esteem. And I also gave some tips of how people can accept themselves and love themselves and all that they are.
Nice.
But now, after these books, I'm writing some fiction books now to teach more things about intuitive gifts and spirituality in regards to speaking with spirits and psychic and all of that. And there's children's books. I finished a children's novel, and I'm working on a young adult novel.
Fantastic.
And you have a radio.
I do.
A radio show. Tell us a little bit about that.
It's called Awakened Path Radio, and you can find it on Podbean, iTunes, wherever. You can Google it and you'll find it. And it deals with all metaphysical topics. I have a doctorate in metaphysics, so I love metaphysics. All things metaphysical.
And tell everybody your website, Candace. How do they outreach to you?
How can somebody get a hold of you?
Well, yeah, I have two websites you can reach me. CandaceNadineBreen.com, and that's CandaceNadineBreen.com, and also AwakenedPathOnline.com. And you can get in touch with me either way. There's contact forms and everything, email, Facebook.
You're very generous. You're very loving. Thank you for, of course, being you, but not just that, but sharing yourself so generously.
Yeah, something I have to say to those who are watching. We do this show completely unscripted.
Right.
And so it kind of puts our guest in a hot seat, because we haven't had them submit any questions to us or any answers to anything, and so we're just flying by the seat of our pants here in front of a camera. And for you, Candace, to sit there and be very honest about who you are and what you do, I truly hope our listeners feel the same energy that we do here on the other side of the screen. And man, this has been a great interview.
Yeah.
I've greatly enjoyed you having me on, and I'm great to talk with you again.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
And I love what you're doing. This is so wonderful.
Thank you. Well, we look forward to having continued interaction with you. We
Yep.
know that will continue.
Yep.
For all of you watching this program, outreach to Candace, get her books. Everything is a message to you. Everything is a runner for you. She is such a genuine, loving soul. There's nothing there that should be a resistance for you. And take these words, use them in your life, open up your field, unleash your superpowers, right?
Yeah.
We know that everyone out there is extraordinary in all ways. Find all the ways in your life that you can know this and you can inspire this in everyone else. Thanks everybody for being with us. We look forward to our next episode and our next programming with you. And we wish all of you the most extraordinary day. Bye everyone. Thanks.